Welcome and good evening. This is the July 23rd, 2025 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses, including plan developments, zoning relief, and appeals from the decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo, Commissioner Berlin,
Here.
Commissioner Harris-Ferry,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Mabadi, Commissioner Mangum,
Here.
Commissioner Murinchev,
Here.
Commissioner Puctel, Chair Lindwall.
Here. With 5 members present, we have a quorum. Also present tonight from city staff are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones, Senior Planner Sam Hubbard, Planning Manager Liz Williams, Development Services Supervisor Jeremiah Bebo, and I think that's it. Do we have? Okay, and then we will have Cynthia Granville from the city's law department a bit later. This is a formal hearing, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time, so all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. The applicant is asked to limit its presentation to 20 minutes. Following the applicant's presentation, commissioners may ask questions about the proposal and the standards for approval. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to commissioner questions. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have a chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to questions. And in this case, the plan development, I believe the notice requirement is within 1,000 feet of the subject property. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. The commission will then close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of our community, and recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and corresponding staff memorandum. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record and sign in on the provided public comment sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. There's one item on our agenda tonight. I presume the applicant is present? Yes. Okay, thank you. If you plan on speaking tonight on a matter before the commission, please raise your right hand to be sworn. So, okay, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Okay, thank you. All right, with that, the first items on our agenda are approval of 3 sets of minutes. So I presume everyone has had a chance to review those. So may I have a motion regarding the minutes of April 9th?
I move to approve the minutes from April 9th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll, please?
I actually think we can do a voice vote.
Can we do a voice, we can do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I
Was-
abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Harris-Farik abstains. With respect to the minutes of April 16th, 2025, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of April 2025. 25.
April 16th.
April 16th, excuse me, 2025.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions?
Yes.
Okay. You got the extension? Okay, and finally, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 14th, 2025?
Okay, I move to approve the minutes of May 14th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I
Aye.
need to
I
abstain.
abstain.
And I abstain as well. Okay, now on to new, what, are we good? Okay, now on to new business. It's a plan development, it's 601 to 03 and 605 to 615 Davis Street and 1604 to 1608 Chicago Avenue. It's PD 20, or it's 25 PLND-0019. Who is from staff is going to read this into the record? Mr. Hubbard.
Good evening, Chair Lindwall. So the applicant, Carrie Dixon of Davis Street Development Company 2015 LLC, has submitted an application requesting approval of a special use for a planned development to allow construction of a 31-story mixed-use building with approximately 3,200 square feet of ground floor commercial space, 430 dwelling units, and 194 parking spaces, 80 of which being on-site and 114 being off-site, all in the D3 Downtown Core Development Zoning District and the D2 Downtown Retail Core Zoning District. The existing two-story building at the northwest corner of Chicago Avenue and Davis Street, known as the University Building, will be preserved. As part of this application, the applicant has requested 6 site development allowances.
Okay. So we're not going to go through all of the, that's fine. All right. Okay, will the applicant?
Good evening. So, can I have the presentation, please? So my name's Carrie Dixon. I'm a managing director at Vermilion Development. We are the developer behind the applicant for this planned development. And thank you, Madam Chair, for opening the meeting, and happy to be here in front of the Land Use Commission, and really appreciate all of the community that comes out for presentations and discussions in Evanston. I firmly believe that it's the discussions in community meetings that make buildings better, that make buildings kind of align what the developer's interests are with the people that will live in the building and with the community at large, and that always makes developments better. So there are some people here that'll be probably speaking later tonight that I want to introduce. James Michaels is an Evanston resident. He is our design architect from Solomon Cordwell Benz. Javier Milan from KLOA is our traffic consultant. David Reifman from Croak Fairchild is our zoning attorney. And Jonathan Perman, an ETHS graduate, proud ETHS graduate, is our communications consultant. One of our development partners is not able to be here tonight. He had another commitment. Campbell Coyle is our partner in the development for this site. They've just completed 2 buildings in downtown Evanston. The renovation of Lodge Evanston and the Varsity Theater are his 2 projects. And it really brings, his experience on those projects really brings a wealth of knowledge to our team on those developments. Also on our team is Kettle Camp and Kettle Camp. Claire Kettle Camp is a Evanston resident, and their company is located here. And then we also brought another member on our team altogether as a communications marketing consultant recently, another Evanston firm. We really believe in connecting to people that are tied to Evanston as we're doing this project, and so that is one of our focuses. I guess I should have advanced the slide before that. So this site is an opportunity in the making. It is a combination of two lots. This first one is on the east side. It's the vacant lot immediately behind the university building, has an abandoned foundation, and it's creating this missing tooth along Davis Street where it's not contributing to the urban fabric and really not contributing to downtown. And it's been like this for 50 years. And it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed now. And it's surrounded, it's in the middle of the core of downtown, surrounded by everything that has to offer. It's really close to transit, so it's a transit-oriented development, and it deserves a significant building to fit into the urban fabric of Evanston and addresses the goals for Evanston for its downtown. The other portion of the site on the west side is the closed Chase drive-through. Definitely not an appropriate use for downtown Evanston, very automobile focused, has an 85-foot driveway along Davis Street. And we've been here for two other proposals on this site. The whole discussion over that, it's been a decade, over those two proposals was Chase still owned the parcel. They were willing to have it developed, but they were insisting upon the Chase drive-through staying. And we talked about that with staff, with land use, with the council, and that issue doesn't exist anymore. We now own this site. We've purchased this site from Chase and can now do what we want with it and eliminate the automobile use that's there and replace it with something that's definitely appropriate for the site. Sam mentioned that the university building is part of our PD lot. And the reasons for this is that Vermilion Development was selected to develop this site in partnership with the owners of the university building. They own the vacant lot, they own the university building. They're our partner in this project. They're a long-term property owner in Evanston. They've owned the university building and this lot for the 50 years that it's been vacant. They're extremely strong stewards of the university building in terms of protecting it, keeping it, maintaining it as the university building. And so we share the same goals in that in terms of protecting the university building while we're under construction, preserving the university building, and one of the reasons to include the university building lot in the planned development area is a way to help preserve the university building because you're eliminating its development rights. So as we've been developing this building and planning this building, really focused on what Evanston wants in its development in downtown. And one of the things that I think establishes the kind of baseline that everybody is thinking about, it's not necessarily expressed when you read the articles in the newspaper and everything, but Evanston's population has been flat for 40 years. So there hasn't been population growth in Evanston, people living in Evanston. And then the other thing that's happened is Evanston used to be a very strong office destination, and it's not anymore. Unfortunately, it's not anymore. And the lack of those office workers that were in downtown Evanston and buying lunch and everything is really creating challenges for downtown business owners. And our proposal is an opportunity to start to change this. And we've heard that Evanston's goals for downtown, through its downtown plan and through what the council's done, creating and supporting a vibrant downtown, promoting buildings that are sustainable and healthy and resilient, and promoting housing diversity. And our team is definitely aligned with those goals. So 605 Davis will be eliminating we call it a scar on Davis Street, this site that hasn't been developed in years. We're bringing residents to that area. We're creating 3,200 square feet of retail along Davis Street to create that retail frontage. We're also planning an all-electric building, totally aligned with the healthy building ordinance. And it's not something that we're doing in the future. It's going to be designed to be an all-electric building as we deliver it, even though in the ordinance there's time to have existing buildings be converted to electricity. And we're also proposing 20% of the apartments in the building to be compliant with the IHO ordinance. So 20% affordable units in the building were required based upon when we submitted our planned development application to provide 10%. So we're providing 20% IHO units with the building. So there's been a lot of discussion in the community meetings about who is going to live here. And through Chris's development of Lodge Evanston and the Varsity, we feel like we have a really good idea of what that is. We're going to be bringing over 600 new residents to downtown to support downtown's businesses. And based upon the two projects that we've just completed, it's approximately 55 units that we've delivered, or that Chris has delivered, I should say. It's a mix. It's the mix of the people that currently live in downtown Evanston. There's young professionals. There's empty nesters, there are graduate students, there's professors that work at Northwestern, and there's some families. It's this real mix that is what makes Evanston the community that it is. And so that's the target market. That's who we expect to be leasing to. Some of the residents live in Evanston now. Some of them are transferring across the country and choosing to live in Evanston because of all of the things that it brings to the table. The other thing is economic impact to the city of Evanston. And I realize this isn't necessarily an LUC topic, but currently these two lots pay about $21,000 a year in real estate taxes. Over the course of the next 15 years, when the project is completed, it's going to deliver $12.8 million to the city of Evanston over 15 years. So a significant economic boost to the tax base in Evanston, to not only the city, but also the schools. The other thing I mentioned was affordable housing. And this is an opportunity to create 86 new affordable housing units in the heart of downtown in one project. That's twice as many units that have been created via the IHO since it was established, which is approximately a decade ago. So really moving the needle on affordable housing and affordable housing downtown. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I firmly believe that the community discussion really makes a project better. So this slide's a little hard to read, but through the course of this discussion with the community, we've made changes to the proposal. One of the first things was actually suggested by Councilmember Kelly, where she was like, we had one of the bays of the front that wasn't retail. It was like a bike parking room because we thought that was important. And she made the suggestion that it should be retail. And so that is now retail all the way across the front of the building. We've been focused on details of how the university building touches the new building. That was brought up in the Preservation Commission hearing that we had, lots of discussion about how the two buildings related to each other. And making the facade of this building compatible along Davis Street to the university building, as well as the easternmost portion of the building that's above the university building, making it an appropriate backdrop for the university building and that historic structure. And then we also increased the size of I've got too many things moving. We also increased the size and location of our package room based upon some conversations with the residents of Sherman Plaza. And then the most recent modification that we made had to do with our unit mix. There's been a lot of conversation about making sure that the building is appropriate for empty nesters and families. So we made a modification and made our 2-bedroom units and our 3-bedroom apartments larger so that they're more in line with what that demographic is looking for. And that took out some studios and 1-bedroom units and reduced our unit count from 445 apartments to 430. So one of the things that the Land Use Commission is focused on is special uses. And there are many aspects of this project that are aligned with the standards of the special use. it's a lot of topics that cover a lot of urban planning issues and things. To me, it's about a building and a proposal being very thoughtful, focused on the urban design, making sure it fits, it's compatible with the rest of the building, thinking about transportation and sustainability. And I want to talk some about how this proposal is meeting those goals. So from the first floor plan, the blue area across the front of the building is the 3,200 square feet of retail. Our entire frontage is retail or active uses of the residential lobby. And that's important for this, maintaining this street wall opposite the south side of Davis Street and really completing that. We're planning public art in the lobby, kind of on the right side of the lobby, and we'll have another image of that. We have a bike room on the first floor. Important to be able to have people that can access their bike, not have to put it in an elevator necessarily, get out into the community, and there'll be e-bike charging stations in the bike room. We've also partnered with Collective Resource, Evanston-based company focused on composting, right? We were planning this in the office building. It's really different when you're talking about a residential building, but I've had lots of conversations with Erlene about the best way to do that. We've talked to city staff, the person that's in charge of composting, and really figured out how to apply this into a residential building. And so composting will be available in the building to residential tenants as well as the commercial tenants. Getting rid of the Chase drive-through brings an opportunity to really recreate the frontage, the Davis Street area here. Eliminating the driveway allows us to plant more trees in the streetscape. It allows us to create 2 new parking spaces on Davis Street, city metered parking spaces that don't exist because of the driveway. And it also allows us to create this lay-by area in front of the residential entrance, which can allow, whether it's an Uber driver or a Grubhub delivery, those short-term deliveries that need to happen at a building like this, gives them a place to be out of the drive lane and making a stop and not interfering with traffic flow. And then the other part of it is vehicular-based too, where access to our parking ramps and access to our loading is off of the alley. There's a fantastic alley adjacent to this site, and we're utilizing that rather than a curb cut. I don't think city staff would have let us put a new curb cut in, but so either way, we're utilizing that alley, and then later public benefits when we're talking to council, we're doing replacement and work in that alley. And then this is how it kind of shows up in the streetscape. You can see the retail, you can see the art on the right side of this, and the way the Davis Street facade is sensitive to the university building, but more importantly here, it's the experience on the street. James has done a really great job of pulling the first floor back a little bit so that we can kind of put a little bit more space in the sidewalk. This is a fairly narrow sidewalk for Evanston, and trying to make that a little bit wider. So Sam referenced the 6 development allowances. The first 2 are density and FAR, which kind of work together, but I'm going to try and talk to them about them a little bit separately. So as Sam mentioned, this site is in the D3 zoning district in Evanston, the most dense zoning district in Evanston. It's also in the heart of Evanston, close to transportation, meeting all of the things that are appropriate for a dense site. And, it's that density which helps us create the IHO units and the affordable units on site. But the other thing that's really helpful about this particular site is not only is it located in the core of Evanston and close to transportation, it's also vacant. There doesn't have to be a discussion about, are you tearing down some building in Evanston? Are you relocating a business? Because that matters to Evanston, and we understand that matters, but that is not something that's happening here. This is a site that is begging to be developed in downtown Evanston. So it's a perfect location. From an FAR perspective, it's similar to density, but I think the way that the architects have looked at it, the way that our team has looked at it is, how are you dealing with the FAR? How are you sculpting the building? How are you making the building so it's not just this squat box of an apartment building and making it so that it fits into the character of Evanston? And we'll talk about that I'll talk about that as we go through that. But the goal is to provide relief at the ground. To me, the important part of the design of this building is how this building touches the ground. So an image of downtown Evanston on why density and FAR are important here. I mean, you can see the dense buildings that already exist in this 4-block area. You know, we're well served by Metro. You can see the Metro line that can get you to downtown Chicago in 25 minutes. That's one of the reasons why people want to live in downtown Evanston. It's well served by bike lanes, bus routes. It has a walk score of 97. It's almost a perfect score in walkability, right? And in addition to that, the infrastructure that's necessary for a new building in this location exists. Utilities, the alley, all of those things that you need to have a successful development are here. And then we'll talk about it later too. There's capacity in the city garages that are a block from this site at Church Street and in Sherman Plaza, and our desire to be able to use those for parking for this proposal. So again, it's a perfect site to be developed. It's a perfect site for density, and it's a perfect site for FAR. So there's been a lot of talk about height, and you know, obviously I believe this is an appropriate place for height in Evanston. It's located where tall buildings have already been built in Evanston. You know, Orrington Plaza was built in 1969, 1970. So for 55 years, there have been tall buildings in this location in Evanston. We share a property line with the Park Evanston. We're across the alley from Orrington Plaza, and we're a block from Sherman Plaza and the Rotary Building. So if there's a place in Evanston to build a tall building, this is it. And so as we think about it, it's not just a question of how tall is the building, but it's how are you designing the building. And so this is a view that we've created to kind of show the skyline of Evanston. Our proposal is the blue dot and the second from the right, the kind of white rectangle there. One Rotary Plaza is to the right, Orrington Plaza is there, Sherman Plaza. And you can see how it's 60 feet taller than Sherman Plaza and Orrington Plaza, but it is really not out of character with that family of buildings that already exists in downtown Evanston. Then from other standpoints, we need to worry about how the building, you know, comes to the ground and how it appears from important places in Evanston. This is from Fountain Square. This facade is important to us. I think the design team's done a really great job of sculpting the building. That little notch on the left side of the building, you know, creates, it's not much. It might be 7 feet, 8 feet, but it really separates the building from Orrington Plaza. We've had conversations with Golub Company, which is the primary owner of, and Jim Investors, which are the primary owners of Orrington Plaza. They really appreciated the fact that we had pulled that corner of the building away from Orrington Plaza just a little bit because it makes a difference. The other thing that notch does is it really makes the building more slender. Residential buildings are slender buildings. Our office proposal that was approved was kind of a short, fat building. And residential buildings are slender, and we need to be celebrating that fact. Also important is how the height comes down to the base. You know, Orrington Plaza comes down as a big square, you know, I took architectural history, modernist, international style. That's what I'm trying to get, international style building. And this is not that. We're trying to come down to the ground with the tower is set back from Davis Street with our garage, which is 3 stories tall at the front. So you can see how this pushes back off of Davis Street. you really, when this is, kind of in front of Newport Coffee, just west of the site on the other side of Davis Street. And you don't really have a sense of the tower above. It's really about what do you see in this 5 to 6 to 7 story portion of the building. And then from the other side, again, you can see how this part of the building we consciously held forward. We wanted to kind of emphasize where the entrance to the residential portion of the building was. And it's in this portion that is out at Davis Street. And, our goal here was to try and make it so that the composition of the facade of the new building really is in keeping with the university building, pulling lines from the university building, proportions from the university building. And that's one of the things that we've studied, and the public has helped us do that. Same thing with the facade above the university building and having that be an appropriate backdrop for the university building. And again, the tower is not really noticeable. What really matters here is how the building's coming down to the ground. And most importantly, it's that continuation of retail from Chicago Avenue all the way to the alley with Accent Plus and Salon Soto, and then our entrance, and then the residential portion, the retail portion of our proposal. So we've talked about how the building has been sculpted, and I want to talk about that more because, again, we don't want a bulky building that comes down to the ground all the way from the upper portions of the building. And so SCB really did a job of studying downtown Evanston and looking at the various buildings that comprise Evanston. And so this slide shows in the purple, slide number 1, those are all the active storefronts and active street frontages in Evanston. You can see how we're extending Davis Street with active storefront. Slide 2 in yellow is showing all of the 3 and 4, I think it's 3 to 5 story buildings in Evanston, 2 to 5 story buildings in Evanston. And again, our garage is 3 stories tall. It's about 2/3 of the width of the building itself. That matches that datum that's being established by all of these buildings in Evanston. Slide 3, the red buildings that are between 2 and 13 stories in Evanston. There's actually quite a few of them. And how that portion of the building that is defining the residential entry on the east portion of the site matches up with those datums and fills in that. And then the 4th slide, obviously, is the blue, which is the taller buildings in downtown Evanston. Again, there are quite a few of them, and how this proposal fits into that. And this kind of leads to something that land use is focused on in terms of the ziggurat setback and how the building, gets sculpted. So, we're talking about a couple of variations to the setback. The first one is the kind of orange in the middle drawing. The residential building is, I believe, 33 feet from Davis Street. So we're encroaching in that requested 40-foot setback by about 7 feet. The portion that's coming out to the front on Davis Street at the entrance is obviously at the lot line, not necessarily in compliance with the setback suggestions, but in our perspective, important for defining this building and defining this building to fit into Evanston. And then on the north side of the building towards the Park Evanston, we have a almost 10-foot encroachment in that setback. Again, we think that that's appropriate. We are adjacent to a 1-story building and adjacent to the parking lot or the parking garage for Park Evanston.
20 minutes.
I've got 3 slides. The last thing to talk about is the parking allowance. And so we hired TY Lin, which is a transportation consultant, to do a study of all of the apartment buildings in downtown Evanston. And they went through all of these parking garages for these apartment buildings, 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, because that's when cars are home, and they could count exactly how many cars are in all of these apartment buildings. And the interesting thing is that there is a lot of vacant parking in downtown Evanston in these apartment buildings. They were required to have a lot of parking when they were built. They're currently using somewhere around 0.45 parking spaces per unit. And that is what we're proposing for our building. We would be providing 80 of those parking spaces in the building itself. And then we would be leasing the rest of the parking spaces from the city and city garages at Church Street and Sherman Plaza. And this is really a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for us because there's a way for us to effectively provide parking for our residents that's a block away. It's a win for the city because these residents are going to be leasing parking spaces from the city at market rate rents of $115 a month. So it's $157,000 a year revenue to the city for making these garage spaces available to us. And the community wins too, because rather than bringing all of the traffic on Davis Street in our alley and up into the parking in the building, the traffic is now directed to the parking garages, which are designed to handle the cars anyway. So it really takes traffic away from the building and puts it where it's already been designed in downtown Evanston.
20 minutes.
Thank you.
You're way over.
Okay, thank you.
You are going to wrap this up soon. We said 2 more slides?
This is the last one.
Okay, perfect.
So
Thank
I
you.
said 2 more slides.
Okay.
Yes. So, like I said, as I started, this proposal is designed to meet Evanston's goals for downtown development. We're working with a long vacant site that needs to be addressed. We're creating a thoughtful design that aligns with the downtown plan and the standards for special use. Density and height in this location is appropriate in the core of downtown, near transit and bike lanes. We're creating 86 affordable apartments, twice the number that's required, and we're creating an all-electric building to comply with the healthy building ordinance. So we think that we're doing what Evanston's asking for, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Now, at this time, do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant? Well, then, Commissioner Berlin.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions. So on the alley, it's potentially a lot to put on the alley. So I'm just curious to know, and I have a couple questions. Have you all spoken with any of the other buildings that will be using the alley? Have there been conversations about coordinating deliveries? I think it's workable, but I think it will take some, coordination. So I'm curious to hear thoughts on the amount of volume potentially in that alley.
We had, we talked to the Orrington Plaza owner. I don't believe they utilize the alley, though, for much of their deliveries. If they do, they have like an open dock. They did not bring anything like that up. In our previous iteration for the office and the original residential proposal, we had a lot more cars and we had a drive-through that was spitting out into the alley. So we had a lot more issues to kind of talk about. I had conversations with Bright Directions. They're not necessarily a landlord that's having deliveries come, but they do use that alley, and there is parking for that use mid-block for people to drop off their children and things like that. We had worked out whatever needed to be worked out previously, and I reached out to them again a couple of times. I talked to the manager there, and nothing further came of that.
They didn't express concern.
Yeah, they didn't. Thank you. That's a good way to say it.
What about Whole Foods? Do they use that alley?
Whole Foods uses that alley. We have not talked to them.
Yeah.
My understanding is most of their deliveries are in fairly large vehicles, fairly large trucks. That they have a rear back into angled loading dock there in the alley. But I think a lot of their deliveries come in kind of early morning and things like that. A residential building's deliveries are slightly different. We're going to have refuge pickup twice a week, most likely. We've talked to LRS, we've talked to Evanston's, I'll call him the garbage czar, about how much waste we should expect in Evanston, and had really good conversations figuring that out to make sure all of our waste is in our loading dock and has places to be and can be picked up from inside the building. And that's going to happen in the morning, but it shouldn't be
Yeah.
too much impact on the alley. The rest of the traffic, I don't know if Javier wants to speak to it, but the rest of the traffic is, you've got 80 cars of residential people living in a transit-oriented location where they may be taking the train downtown and not be using their car for days. So there's not a lot of traffic in and out of our garage
Yeah.
with those 80 cars. And then deliveries will come to our loading dock, like Amazon, when they're coming with however many packages they're going to come in a day, they're coming into our loading dock.
Yeah, okay.
They're not doing that from the front of the building.
Okay.
And then the final thing is residential move-ins and move-outs, right? Those are going to be scheduled.
Yeah,
They'll be
I
in
saw that.
they'll be in the loading dock. Those typically happen not when Whole Foods needs to use the alley. So I think there's a balance of the traffic that's in the alley.
Okay. A couple other questions, if you'll bear with me.
Sure.
I was reading through public comment, and I was really struck by something that a couple of people brought up, which got me thinking about the unit composition. I think we've heard in our community that there's absolutely an interest in housing that's affordable, and specifically, I think there's an interest in housing that's affordable for families as a way to encourage enrollment in our school district, especially. So looking at the unit composition, I believe 22% is 2-bedroom and 3% is 3-bedroom. I'm curious to know, and look, I'm not a developer, so I don't doubt you've done the market study, and so I'm not questioning that, but I'm curious to know what percentage of those units, if any, would be eligible for the IHOs, as opposed to making all of the IHO units studios or 1-bedrooms. Like, I think we have an opportunity to make sure that the affordable units are not, are supporting families if we play our cards right on this. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And IHO, meaning not just we put multiple people who need 1-bedrooms as roommates into 3-bedroom units, but
No.
Okay.
No, we're aligned with the kind of structure of the IHO ordinance. So Evanston's IHO ordinance requires the unit ratios for studios 1s, 2s, and 3s to be equal between market rate housing and affordable housing.
Okay.
So therefore, we have 2 3-bedroom IHO apartments.
Okay.
One of them is located on the 4th floor, so it actually has an exterior terrace. That's part of the unit, and then the second one is above it. And then whatever the unit mix, that 22% of 2 bedrooms, there would also be 22% of 86.
I got it.
Somewhere
So it's
around-
going to follow the breakdown. So 75% will be either
somewhere
studios or
around-
1-bedrooms.
Yeah, somewhere around 18 2-bedrooms, I believe.
Okay. So the IHO strip matches the composition of the building at large.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's Evanston's requirement. We've had conversations with Yuri about it. We were aligned on where we could put certain units.
Yeah.
But in addition to the unit mix matching, it also requires, the finishes are going to be the same in the units. So there's no differentiation when you walk into a market rate unit or an IHO unit.
Yeah, of course.
They look the same, feel the same, they are the same.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that they can't all be like facing Orrington Plaza in that corner of the building. They will be distributed. We haven't worked out exactly where they're going to be located, but we understand Evanston's desire to have them throughout the building. They're not segregated into a particular part of the building.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then my last question, and this may actually be a question for the city more so. I'm not certain, so you all let me know. I've been thinking about parking/traffic, and I understand the concern that residents have around that. That area can get quite congested I think with a lot of double parking, especially for people for the restaurants. Thinking about this a little bit in terms of leasing from the city, I didn't see a length of time for the leases in the city lots. So I'd be curious to know, like, if they're 1-year leases, maybe we think about that, you know? And then I guess my other question is the capacity of city parking decks. I mean, look, it will not surprise anyone to hear that I am very excited about the possibility of developing this plot of land. I absolutely think this makes sense. I also think we need to really think through how to do this thoughtfully, make sure the city gets out of it what it can and that it works for the people who live in this city. So I'm asking in that spirit, like, what's the capacity for this city to take parking in our decks? Because it feels like this, I've only been on the land use committee 4 months, 5 months, but it feels like every project I've seen where like there's going to be limited on-site parking because they're going to park in decks. And I just want to understand better our capacity to keep doing that, which I think also dovetails with this question of leases lengths. Thank you.
Sure, I can answer that. So with regards to the lease, there is no termination date, so that would have to be a perpetual lease. They would have to continue renewing that with the city. If they wanted to lease less spaces, then they would have to come back before the Land Use Commission and City Council for an amendment to their approval. The city generally structures it into like either 5 or 10-year leases that they, renew once those leases are up, but they would have the continuing obligation to renew those leases unless they found demand to be less than what they need to lease. At that point, they could petition the city to change the number of spaces they're required to lease.
Okay.
Regarding the overall, future capacity and the city-owned parking decks, I can't give you any specific information other than the general statement that every time these are proposed, anytime there's a lease request proposed from a developer, we will approach our parking and facilities management folks, and they have indicated that there is quite a bit of excess capacity.
Yeah.
Some garages, it fluctuates a little bit, but in this case, they had no concerns with the number of spaces. Moving forward, we can try and get you better, statistics on what percentage is vacant versus used in the garages.
Well, and I guess if I hear what you're saying correctly, I've just kind of been thinking like parking garages, but I think the nuance here, if I'm understanding correctly, is that different developments are using different garages, and thus this question of capacity is less universal than per garage. Okay.
Yes.
I think I can stop for now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll add a little bit to that. So the parking requirement is a requirement of the building owner through our plan development. We then have to lease the spaces, and then we lease them to the residents. So it's kind of a catch-22 as the developer, because if we say that we're going to lease 114 spaces, we may only have demand for 102. So we're paying for 12 extra spaces that aren't being utilized, and we would at some point come back to the city and say, we've consistently not used that many spaces, kind of thing. The capacity of the existing garages is also covered in our T.Y. Lin study. They were talking to Michael Riviera, who's the parking person for the city. They're approximately half full now. And that half full is they don't really have good data on whether it's at day or at night. But the other thing that happens in parking garages in particular that are to the public is you may have somebody coming and parking to work in downtown Evanston. They're gone at night. A residential person's coming back from work at night and parking in the garage. And so you get more capacity than the number of spaces if they were all assigned to an individual vehicle, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mangum?
Hello.
Hi.
So I also had questions about parking. So the 120 spaces that you plan to lease, are they scattered around downtown, or are they in one parking garage? And then also, I guess the question is, are there 120 vacant spots for residential use right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So we haven't finalized that agreement with the city on parking, but we have talked about either the Sherman Plaza garage or the Church Street garage. Both of those garages are half full. If I remember right, there's close to 600 parking spaces, maybe it's 700 parking spaces available in those garages right now. And we're asking to lease 114 of those 600.
While we're on the subject of parking and the city's research, I support leasing spaces in the garages. However, I think we all need to keep in mind that when Northwestern Stadium is completed in their programming and their concerts and other events, their parking management plan anticipates using substantial number of parking spaces in city garages to support what's available on campus and site. Well, that doesn't impact your proposal or our consideration of it. I think that's something that the city staff needs to keep in mind moving forward, because that's kind of, part of that plan development approval as well.
Yeah, and we'll study that and have that conversation with the city. I go to a lot of concerts in Con Auditorium and park in the Church Street garage when I'm here, and it is really empty, so. But yeah, we need to actually do the math to understand that.
Any other commissioners? I have a number of questions, so I guess I will start. The first really has to do with you're proposing a substantial 20% of the project to be affordable housing units. Is that to take advantage of the Cook County property tax incentive? Is that kind of where that number came from?
That's one of the reasons, but the other reason is because Evanston wants more affordable housing. So those two things kind of aligning make it so that, yes, that seems to be the right answer.
Okay, could you kind of walk through what that property tax incentive, how it works, and particularly how long will the units remain affordable?
Sure. I'll start, and then I may have experts that are better at this than I am. But it's a state program, state ordinance passed several years ago. It's administered by Cook County because it's real estate taxes. The units are required under the Evanston IHO to be affordable for 30 years, and I think that time period aligns with this abatement program. And what it allows to have happen is for a period of time, and it ramps back, it starts with the assessed value of the site as it currently is, and basically its current real estate taxes that it's paying is the baseline. And then as you complete the building and the building gets reassessed for its full tax amount, you're able to pay, I believe it's an 80% abatement for the first 5 years? 4 years, and then 60% for the next 4 years, and it tapers off to the point where you're paying 80% of the real estate taxes through the kind of end of the period to 30 years. And it's a program that is definitely helpful, but I can also tell you that it does not make up the delta for our cost to build those units and the income that we receive for those units. So there's still a delta. It definitely makes it better, but.
And then I guess the numbers you were proposing, saying that this property will generate in property taxes over a period, does that take that abatement into account?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have, and you don't have anyone here from your market, the JLL. Okay, because I have a number of questions concerning the market study. And it really is kind of, first of all, can you kind of describe you said a little bit about what the target demographic of the proposed tenants were. And I really wanted to kind of hone in on how the proposed bedroom mix was chosen. And especially, can you explain why there are so few 2- and 3-bedroom units being proposed? Because that's been identified in the city as a real problem for rental. That there's a mismatch between the larger rental units that would be required by families.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things I think that factor into that. One of them is, the tendency in multifamily residential in buildings like this is smaller units. They're not necessarily, there will be some families living in the building, but that is not the vast majority of the people that are interested in living in this building. So, for instance, we currently have a project under construction in Madison, Wisconsin. If you're familiar with Madison, state capital, the Isthmus, University of Wisconsin over here, we're on the other side of the Isthmus from the capital. So not a student housing project development at all. Our unit mix in that particular development really aligns with the same unit mix that we have here. Young professionals, they're gravitating towards smaller units and very amenity-rich buildings that have social spaces in them and things like that that kind of makes up, they don't live in their units. They sleep in their units and then they're out in the building socializing with other residents. They love downtown environments where you can go and, get dinner easily and all those kinds of things. So there's just a tendency nationally for residential units in a building like this to tend on the studio one-bedroom side with a smattering of two-bedroom units. So we have a building in Lakeview in Chicago that we built 2017, I think it delivered. It has 100 units. It has 8 three-bedroom units in it. So 8% of those three-bedroom units are the hardest units for us to lease. Not sure why.
Okay, and then again, going back to the market study, they were projecting, there was a section that was talking about the growth of various, population sectors. And overall, though, it was saying that the projected household growth for the primary market area, which, as I understand, extends beyond Evanston,
Most definitely.
was going to be 443 units over the next 5 years. And I guess that raises the question for me is, why are you proposing 440 for this site?
Well, we're not developing it yet, for
Right.
starters. So this building does not deliver until the spring of 2027? Sorry, when you're talking that far into the future, it's hard to kind of do it. And we don't stabilize until, 2029. So it takes a while to lease 430 units in the building, whether we're talking about market rate units or affordable units. So both of those take time to fill up. So the other thing is that there's a lot of pent-up demand in the Evanston market. There hasn't been a building built in downtown Evanston since the Albion, right? And that was in 2019, I think. There hasn't been anything built in downtown Evanston. There's a pent-up demand, and then they're talking about the growth of demand in the future.
Okay, and then going back to parking, we don't have, I don't believe that the T.Y. Lin parking analysis was included in our packet, am I?
No, I don't think it was.
Because, again, the JLL market study, one of their, the spaces that they're recommending was between 295 and 315 parking spaces. Just, I'm trying to kind of, I understand
yeah.
that most of our developments, it's not that we haven't had this conversation about the need for parking, particularly in a downtown environment.
Yeah.
But I'm perplexed.
We didn't circle back to the market study and its suggestion for parking and T.Y. Lin's. I will tell you, though, that T.Y. Lin's study is very focused on downtown Evanston apartment buildings and is an accurate study. So we haven't shared that with city staff yet. We can, we will. I promised it to Liz when I told her we were going to be doing it, so there's no reason we won't share that study
Okay.
with the city.
I would suspect that that will be very helpful when this goes to city council. I'm not sure that, we need it for tonight.
Yeah, the reason we did the study is that there is so much conversation about what is an appropriate parking ratio in Evanston. And city staff is being very forward-thinking in that and being flexible now where they previously weren't, that, yes, you can park in our garages. That's, like I said, it's a win for everybody. So yeah, we wanted to figure out what that number was, and we'll share that study.
Okay. Now we want to move on to wind. And again, I presume your consultant is not here on wind, but,
He lives in Vancouver, so no.
okay, well then, lovely city. But one of the things I noticed is the study focuses on Fountain Square in the area east, and in walking down Chicago Avenue on windy days, I've noticed that there's a really substantial wind tunnel effect on Chicago, kind of between Church and about the university building. And I'm not a small person, and I've almost been blown off my feet a couple of times. So the question really is how will this building impact that situation? Is it going to make it better or worse?
Chicago Avenue's in the study area. We asked them to study Fountain Square because there's so much conversations about wind around Fountain Square. And so we wanted to make sure we were studying that important area in downtown Evanston. The building, I believe, will have a positive effect on Chicago Avenue, and I'd have to look at the report, and I might be able to do that before the night's over.
Okay.
But I'm going to use the example of the area in between Orrington Plaza and what I call the Art and Science Building, which has in it. There's a plaza between those two buildings. And the way winds behave is they'll hit a building and then they have to go, they either have to go around it, part of the impact of the wind drops down the facade and down to the street level. And so you can walk on Orrington, for instance, from Davis Street towards Church, and the wind's coming from the south, but you can feel the wind coming off of Chase Tower, blowing this way, even though you look up at the flag on Rotary Building and it's pointing that way. So what you're getting is a wind wash off of the buildings. And what's happening on Chicago Avenue, which is also what's happening in the plaza in between Orrington and Art Plus Science, is the wind is hitting the Park Evanston and hitting the Park Evanston and going around it and down into the street of Chicago Avenue and across that plaza. Our building actually makes that better because it touches our building first. And so rather than hitting the Park Evanston and going in that, it touches our building. Our building, because of the way it's sculpted and the levels at the ground, so it hits the building and comes down and hits the top of our garage and then works its, so it has a longer path to go through to do that, is at least the way I put it in my mind. And if you look at the wind study, the wind analysis, the difference in that plaza to the west of the alley is significantly better with our building there because we're taking the wind and putting it in a different place. I believe the study shows the same thing on Chicago Avenue, but I need to look.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so if I missed it, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
And now I actually do have a question for the for your traffic
He is here.
consultant. He is here, I know. I think that the question is why, or did the traffic study include the proposed traffic, or the traffic that would be generated by the approved legacy building? I saw that the 1012 to 34 Chicago and 1900 Sherman buildings were included, but both of those sites are fairly far away, and my understanding is neither of them is proceeding.
So, I'm sorry, good evening. My name is Javier Milan. I'm a principal of KLOA Incorporated. And as it was mentioned in or presented in the traffic study on page 19, we included several developments in the area. Specifically, the one that you're speaking about, I don't think we included it. However, typical of any traffic study, we get projections from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning for background growth. And what do I mean by that? There's other developments that at the time of the traffic study being conducted, we're not aware of, or they're not even in the pipeline. But we certainly know and understand, as well as CMAP, that there's going to be growth. And that is calculated based on information that the cities, villages provide CMAP. So that growth that I'm talking about is a compounded growth rate of 0.27% per year. And we applied it for 6 years, basically to move all the way up to 2030. And that's a 1.7% increase. And again, that's done because we know that there's certain things that might not be right now in the pipeline or might occur after, let's say, next year. Because of that, we believe that even if we miss what you're talking about, we're covering this and we're including others that might not be in the pipeline anymore.
Okay. The reason I raised this, I believe that your firm did the traffic study for the Legacy building.
Legacy building?
Yeah.
And I'll double check that in here, so let me
and
see.
that really is much closer to the 605 Davis site than, I mean, it's just down, it's across the street from Whole Foods.
Yeah, because we included the 710 Clark Street, the Emerson development, that's 1900 Sherman Avenue, another one located at 1012 and 1034 Chicago Avenue.
Yeah, those last two are the ones that I don't believe are proceeding.
And then also the redevelopment of the Varsity Theater, 1706 Sherman Avenue.
Yeah, I just am, again, I don't know that it will make a significant difference in the operation of the intersections, but it seems to me that that would be a better approved development to have included.
And you said it's called the Legacy Building, just so we can double check. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Legacy, and I don't remember exactly what.
1621 Chicago. Oh,
Sounds right.
We'll double check that.
All right, thank you. And then, thanks. Now I'm into minutia of how the building operates. I apologize, but I think that it's important that these questions get raised. Will there be an on-site an on-site building manager? How's the, you talk about there's the delivery that will be left at the front desk. Is that going to be manned 24 hours? What are the hours? And what happens to the tenants who order DoorDash and you are not supposed to go into the building or you're not supposed to go up to the unit?
You can't get into the building to deliver it. So, part of these questions are probably for our management company. I may have somebody I'm going to ask for some help with here, but I'm going to call them a concierge. There is somebody staffed in the building for, I'm going to call it 2 shifts, like during the day, but there's not somebody necessarily at that front desk in the what I'm going to call the graveyard shift. There's a building management office in the building. It's kind of right behind our retail and in front of our elevators. There will be somebody staffing the building and in the lobby at all times for the building. My expectation is that they're going to help police that lay-by zone in front of the building. If somebody's there a long time, we're going to make sure that they're moving out of that because that is set up for short-term deliveries to the building. Mm-hmm. And they'll also, when it comes time to managing move-ins and things like that, somebody just can't show up and start moving into the building. They have to schedule it, and that's their job to kind of make sure the building's being a good neighbor to the community.
Okay, and then can you talk about the dog run a little bit?
All residents think they need one. This one, we placed it along the alley, kind of tucked in behind the loading dock. It's a small space that somebody can let their dog out when they need to do it quickly kind of thing.
Is it in the building?
It's exterior. It's exterior with a fence, so it's secured. You can get there. That's actually an exit out of the building if you need it to be, but you can get there from the elevators really easily. It's also next to the composting, so you can bring the composting down and walk your dog at the same time. But, I mean, it's kind of a necessary amenity in a building like this. There'll be a dog run. There's also going to be a dog spa, where people can wash their dogs and things like that. So it doesn't need to be big because they're going to walk their dogs too out into the neighborhood, but they also need to have that space for when it's freezing out or snowing out or those types of things.
Okay, and then finally, and then we'll get to, I promise we will get to public testimony. With respect to the green roof on the 4th level, where, that's open to the sky at that point, right? Because it's above, okay. And then I just was noting that you were suggesting that we would have aspen trees planted in that area, and I just was wondering about the roots and the planter depth and whether or not that's realistic. And again, I'm sure that all of these details
Claire
can.
Kettle Camp's here.
Okay. I'm sure all these details can be worked out later, but it just
Yeah.
struck me as having just spent a lot of time looking at aspen trees, it struck me, I don't know what the root structure is like.
It's actually, it's minimal. We need 30.
Say who you are.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Claire Kettle Camp and Kettle Camp. The quaking aspen is an extremely urban tolerant tree, and it's really well suited for a roof deck and amenity.
Okay.
So I think we're proposing them currently in raised planters, and we need about 30 to 36 inches maximum soil depth.
Okay, thank you. I learn something new every day.
Yeah,
And
and the way we do it is we typically come out and there's terraces out there that are level with the residences and the amenity space that's there, and then you'll mound up to be able to create the area for the root ball of the tree. So, and you place them over the columns in the building.
Okay, and then finally, with respect to the washer dryers, are those in-unit facilities, or is that going to be a common area somewhere? Or do you know yet?
No, every unit will have a washer dryer. It's also kind of one of the boxes that you have to check off in necessary amenities in a building like this. There's also a really good chance that we will find a place for 2 special washers for bulk items, so that you want to wash your comforter, you have a place to go and do that. You don't do that very often, so there's only 1 or 2 for the building, but we should have one.
Any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Magnum?
I have one more. So this proposal, if built, will be the tallest building in Evanston, correct?
Yes, by 60 feet.
Okay. And I saw a comment regarding loss of sunlight, and how can you address that, or what is your response to the neighbors' concerns about
Well,
sunlight and day?
We've done a shadow study. I think staff reviewed the shadow study and commented on it. The general thing about the shadow study and the way shadows are behaving on this building's on the north side of Davis Street. The sun typically, after the equinox in March and November is in the southern hemisphere. So all of your shadows are being cast to the north primarily. And so, most of the time in key times of the year when there's more daylight, the shadows are, I looked at it and it goes across Fountain Square and is off Fountain Square in the summer at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And then it's kind of across the Orrington Plaza and then on the Park Evanston parking deck. So it's not shadows coming this direction onto the street, it's shadows going the other direction onto the other buildings on the block. And we have it buried in the deck if you're interested in seeing it.
Would you like to see it, or are you good?
Sure. So this is the summer that I talked about. I kind of feel like I need to be over there to do it. But so 9 a.m. is the upper left-hand corner. Summer solstice, so we're talking about June. You can see the shadow of the building is not on Fountain Square at this time in the morning. It is primarily on Orrington Plaza. 3 hours later is the upper right-hand corner. the shadow is basically straight to the north of us. It's a little bit in the alley, and it's on the garage of the Park Evanston. And then you can see that must be 3 p.m. is the next one. There's some shadow on Chicago Avenue, and then by 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 6 p.m. Yeah, everything's kind of in shadow in summer by that time. Yeah. And then it's similar in other times of the year, but different. So 9 a.m. at the equinox, which is March and October, on the 21st. You can see the shadow at 9 a.m. going again, kind of over the top of Latour and on Orrington Avenue. At noon, it's again to the north on the Park Evanston garage. And then in the afternoon, it comes across Chicago Avenue, and then at 6 p.m. on the solstice, kind of everything's in shadow at that point. And then the winter, everything's in shadow in the winter, right? None of us get enough light in the winter, but same type of thing. You can see that, at noon, you can see where the shadow is. It's kind of in the same place it is at the solstice, kind of on the Park Evanston garage.
Can I do a quick follow-up on one thing you said? You said this would be the tallest building by 60 feet. I thought it would be the tallest building by 38 feet. Am I misunderstanding that? Isn't the tallest building currently 370, 270, and this would be 308?
I think it depends on whether you're talking about absolute building height. That's how I'm answering the question, or zoning building height.
Okay.
And in zoning building height,
Okay.
parking doesn't count.
Yeah, okay,
So-
thank you.
So yeah, this is, we are 331 feet tall, I believe. Or Sherman Plaza is I can't read it from here. 270. 269, and Orrington Plaza is 270. Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of the comments I saw are concerned about the height and the density that brings with that. So can you speak to a little bit how you came to choosing that height and what it might mean to, how would it impact the project if it was required to come down?
We develop our pro formas on a building that we're going to be able to develop. And so it's not always just the developer that makes that decision. Like, we have a lot of financial partners that have to invest in the building with us, whether it's our equity partner or whether it's our lender. And so we have to have certain return thresholds, it's currently around 7%, in order to be able to get the building financed. And we are right at that kind of mark, so to speak, in terms of needing this amount of net leasable area in the building to make the pro forma work. The things that's working against us, construction costs are always, they always seem to be changing, right? So, our pro forma has changed since we did our plan development application by additional costs of just over $1 million, which are kind of based upon potential tariffs and us projecting our construction cost into the future when we think we're building the building. So it's kind of this multifaceted equation, if you will, that it's really what it takes to build this building. I mentioned earlier that the affordable housing units don't come free, so there's a cost to that. We're also spending more money on the all-electric building. This is going to be one of the first major buildings of this type that's all-electric, I think, in the Chicagoland area. So when we started that conversation with our contractor, Walsh Construction, and with IMEG, our mechanical engineer, they didn't have a lot of guidance to go on how do you do that in a building like this. So we've worked through that. We figured it out. That cost is less than redoing the building in 15 years to meet the ordinance. So it's clearly the way to go, but those are costs that we're having to absorb into the pro forma. So.
Okay, any other commissioner questions at this point? Okay, with that, I will open up the discussion for public testimony. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Before we do public testimony, can we just have like a 10-minute break. I'm sorry, I know people have been waiting. I would just like to use the restroom. I don't want to miss anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll reconvene at 8:30. Be back on the, everybody be seated, and so we can continue the public hearing. All right, at this point in the hearing, it's time for public testimony, and I will start with the online sign-up people. And first up, I have Sam Gaiman, Bruce Bomberg, and then Stephen Miskovitz. And everyone has 3 minutes. And please, again, provide your name and address for the record.
Sure, happy to. Thank you very much. My name's Sam Gaiman. I live at 807 Davis Street. So I rise today to speak in support of this development. What I've heard so far today are some inconveniences. I've heard this from the general public, and I've heard it some in the line of questioning. And they mostly relate to wind tunnels, parking, loading decks, things like that. Inconveniences. What I've not heard much of is recognition of what I believe is an existential crisis, which is that young people can't afford a place to live, both across the country, but also right here in Evanston. And perhaps that's because it's not a crisis that I feel is felt evenly by everyone. What you'll quickly notice from the list of speakers tonight is a clear generational divide. Those more likely to speak out against this development are often from a different generation than my own. This generation, their generation, has largely already secured their long-term housing and now benefits from the inflated home prices. Their generation has already adequately funded their retirement accounts. Their generation has already navigated the costs of raising and caring for children. I'm 28 years old. My generation is in a fundamentally different position. We have all felt the pains of inflation in recent years, but my generation has experienced this far more acutely. College costs have led to crushing student debt, childcare costs have tripled since 1990, and home prices in the greater Evanston area are now selling for an average of $750,000. People simply cannot afford to live in a place like Evanston anymore. It's having a visible impact. We've all seen the closures. Gearhead Outfitters just closed. Ray's Italian just closed. Giordano's just closed. I could go on, but we've all seen the vacant storefronts in downtown Evanston. We all want a vibrant and thriving community, so how do we get that back? The answer is quite simple, in my opinion. Build more housing. More people in downtown Evanston is unequivocally a good thing. This development would bring more than 600 people directly into the heart of the city. That is a massive, immediate boost for the stores and the restaurants downtown. I won't pretend to be an expert on things like wind tunnels, loading docks, parking, but I do know this. This building is 2 blocks from 2 different train lines that go straight downtown. It's 2 blocks from an express bus to the airport for just $2. It's within 2 blocks of 2 different grocery stores. Never mind the parking. And by the way, I live in one of those downtown high-rises. There is a lot of vacant parking. I understand these units won't be cheap, but I would ask you this. How many affordable units are there at the vacant lot right now? If you don't agree with that logic, it's plain to see. We need more housing. It's straightforward. People in my generation desperately need it. Evanston businesses desperately need it. And the schools in the city desperately need the tax revenue. Thank you. I yield back.
Okay, next up is Bruce.
Good evening. I am Bruce Baumberger, a resident at 807 Davis Street and a member of the Downtown Evanston Residents Association. I think Evanstonians agree that we do not want vacant lots, such as the one at 605 Davis, to stay vacant. When considering that vacant lot, the question is how much density it can absorb without impacting the quality of life for residents at that address and elsewhere in downtown Evanston. The various in-depth studies commissioned by Vermillion for the proposed building are comprehensive and, as one might expect, suggest that downtown Evanston can absorb a concentration of hundreds of residents at 605 Davis. My analysis of the proposal suggests that a project similar in size to the Legacy at 1621 Chicago Avenue would fit in well at 605 Davis. Speaking of the Legacy, I don't think any of the studies related to traffic reflect the impact of traffic that will be generated by the legacy, as noted, I think, by you, Jean, a little bit earlier. As we contemplate downtown residential development, we must reflect on the fact that the capacity of our core downtown streets has not changed in the past century or more, nor is it likely to change in the next century. Even though our community enjoys access to excellent mass transportation, as pointed out by the earlier speaker, the advent of our devotion to online shopping has exponentially increased the volume of package delivery vehicles on our streets. 29,000 packages at my address last year suggests that the 605 residents would be receiving 50,000 packages. And nice to note that they increased the size of the package room, but I wonder about staffing to manage those packages. In addition, a growing number of residents not owning cars significantly increases the use of shared ride services. Regarding the 605 project, with only a 2-car loading zone, Vermillion expects all the delivery and shared ride vehicles to fit into those spaces. However, loading zones are available for use by anyone to, for example, on any given evening, driving along the 600 block of Davis, I've seen anywhere from 3 to 7 vehicles double parked with active 4-way flashers. I assume they are stopped to pick up meals at nearby restaurants. They, of course, will also use the 605 loading zone. I'll be working with another member of downtown Evanston residents to create a time-lapse video of a typical day in the 600 Davis block. We don't have time to dwell on it this evening. I'm concerned about the inconvenience of 605 residents parking their cars in our downtown garages, neither of which is close to 605 Davis. Our congested one-way streets downtown will add much time to accessing and parking cars in those garages, particularly for residents experiencing mobility issues. There's not enough time this evening to discuss transportation scenarios, so I'm hopeful that there will be other forums to do so. Lastly, some people think that the addition of the residential buildings downtown will fill empty storefronts. Let's be realistic. Thousands of residents have been added to downtown Evanston during the past few decades. Our stores disappeared because of Old Orchard, big box stores elsewhere in downtown Evanston, and our focus on online shopping. With the advent of Northlight Theater in downtown Evanston, let's consider it as a major anchor for a vibrant North Shore arts district. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Stephen Miskovitz, followed by Vali Lev, and then Gol Aga.
You want copies of this?
Was it in the packet?
No.
Sure.
And do you have one for staff as well?
Because you're working overtime tonight, I put the press. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. And great job on the pronunciation, by the way. I'm Stephen Miskowitz, resident of 807 Davis, next door. I'm also its condo association president. I also am one of the founders and current board of directors for the Downtown Evanston Residents Association. I sit on the Council of Condominium Presidents for Downtown Evanston. And this one will lighten you up. I'm also a developer. So I have more than one perspective to bring to this tonight. First of all, I'm not against in any way development of the site by Vermillion. The site does need to be developed, and they have done a phenomenal job of their adaptive reuse of the Varsity Theater, and I'd like to see more developments like that within downtown Evanston. First point, from a legal point of view, the developer is using something I have never seen before in Evanston, and I'm literally asking for a continuance to get a legal opinion on this, but I'm not familiar with the practice of assigning your FAR development rights without ownership of the parcel. I don't see that as being part of the Evanston zoning code, so I would ask that the zoning committee at least table for 30 days to make certain that we're not setting a new precedent that is not already within the zoning code. And that shared FAR rating is pivotal for this developer to proceed with their variance. Second, Madam Chairman, you hit on many of the same points. So even though I've bullet pointed them for you, I want to just extrapolate quickly on some of the others here. From the JLL marketing, but I quote as Section A here, I can't really determine whether this project is going to be for student housing or whether it's for the greater demographic of downtown Evanston, which predominantly is 55 plus. No, I didn't bring a cheering section, okay. And I would like to see a continuance for a marketing study, because what I don't want to see is a development that gets put together similar to what we had with the Link. The Link was supposed to be affordable housing, et cetera, and it is now totally student housing. And it has a lot of commensurate issues in being student housing. Nothing wrong with student housing or with developing as a full residential building for our demographic, which tends to be 40 plus, but the two don't mix. And I think we need to be realistic in saying to the developer, you can't have both, so which way are we going with it? So just a further extrapolation on that. Second, you hit on the parking. Again, I was very concerned about the JLL marketing study.
Can you wrap up, please?
I will. I would like to see a continuance where we further analyze the parking availability. Third, we talked about the loading spaces. I think the 2 bays are insufficient as that alley is typically blocked by Whole Foods. I think that, contrary to Alderman Kelly, that retail could potentially be turned into a drop-off pickup point, more or less a porte-cochere. That's something that may be considered and would relieve the potential congestion off of Davis Street. And lastly, the wind shear analysis with the downwashing. I'd like to see us stop accepting reports that are based upon O'Hare Airport statistics and not on the microclimate that is reflected in downtown Evanston. So again, a continuance for that so that we can get an accurate wind shear analysis. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. We have a request for continuance. I propose that we consider this after we've heard from members of the public. That's will be subject to a vote of the commissioners present. So is that acceptable?
I'm just a little unclear procedurally what.
A continuance?
Well, I know what a continuance is, but so if someone requests one, it potentially halts things? This is not something I've received training on.
Well, let me read you the section in the Plan Commission rule, or the Land Use Commission rules. That might be easier. And basically, it's any person with a legal interest in real property within the notification boundary for said case shall have the right to request a continuance of a case. Any request for continuance shall be made in writing and include the specific reasons the continuance is necessary. The continuance shall be read into the record, and a motion to continue shall be called by any member of the commission, seconded, and a roll call vote shall be called. The continuance may be granted if the motion carries by a simple majority. In the interest of time and receiving testimony from those who are already present at the meeting, the chair may determine whether it is appropriate to allow testimony to proceed on a given case when a continuance has been requested. If the chair so determines, the request for continuance shall be heard at the conclusion of public testimony and public comment. A continuance may be granted at the commission's discretion upon showing the case is unable to proceed with testimony, evidence, or cross-examination at the current meeting for good cause. Any commissioner may move a continuance by stating the specific reason. Should the request for a continuance of said case be granted, public announcement shall be made of a date certain upon the continuance being granted. Any continued case shall hear only new testimony and receive new evidence specific to the reason for the continuance. Should the request for the continuance of said case be denied, the case shall continue. So we have a written request for the continuance. So as chair, I would.
But we have a city attorney.
Chair, can I just clarify one thing?
Yes.
The city code does require, if a written continuance is requested, that it shall be granted. So it's non-discretionary tonight whether or not you make the continuance or whether or not you grant the continuance. I just wanted to make that subtle clarification for you.
So it will be.
You have to grant a continuance per city code.
Okay, the rules have kind of changed and been a little unclear of that over. Okay, that is fine, but
If this is a legal issue, presumably the city has considered it. Can the city address it, and then we potentially can continue discussing?
Absolutely, we can address it. However, city code does say if you receive a continuance, it shall be granted.
Okay, thank you.
And in any event, we have a lot of people here who have come to testify, and so we'll discuss the date for the continuance at the conclusion of the public testimony. So with that, next up, the speaker is Vali Lev, and followed by Gul Aga, and then Aaron Rosen.
So I'm Vali Lev. I live at 807 Davis, which is very close and very similar to the proposed building. So I thought that we could compare the two and see what insights we can learn about the proposal. Now, some of the things I wanted to say were already covered, so I'll just provide additional information. The parking issue came up big time. And I think it's very easy to figure out where the truth is and what the solution and the correct number is. How much parking is required? At my building, it's 1.2 parking spaces per unit. Is it too much? It's easy to find out. The commission can really ask several similar residents downtown, how many units do you have? How many residential parking is available and busy, is used, how many cars people have. And you can find out if our number, 1.2, is correct. Maybe it's not. For sure, it's not going to be 0.4 because in our building, there are very few residential spots that are not used. So find out what the right number is. If it is let's say 0.8, they would require 400 parking spaces. So far from the 200 being proposed. Second, the 120 available at other garages will have to be confirmed, which you guys brought up yourselves. Are they really available to be dedicated to a certain license number that is the owner of that spot? It can't be that during the day that person is leaving and somebody else can park. It has to be a dedicated number. Second comparison that is interesting, in our building there are 251 units. If you compare here, we have a proposal for 1.77 more units. So let's compare what happens in our building, and then we can easily prorate at 1.77 more. What does it mean for this proposed building? So one is package deliveries. This came up. They will need to handle, based on our rate, 52,000 packages a year. An important issue is that in our building, only some of the units are rental, 54. Of the 54 rentals we had in 2024, 22 turnovers, right? People moving in and out. So that makes 41% of the rental units were turned over. In this building, all are rental units. So if you use the same number that we have, which is a fact, 41%, that will result in 182 turnovers a year for fully rental buildings. Now let's compare what traffic we can handle for deliveries, for packages, for moving. We have 3 bays, double size, with semi capability. They have 2 bays. So they're supposed to do 8 times more moves and 77% more packages for much less capacity of bays. I think that a lot of data to sort out, and I think that it's easy for the Commission to see what's the real numbers, what's available, and are the number of units proposed supported or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Lindwall. I'm Gul Aga. I'm a member of the Environment Board, of Evanston Environment Board. I'm a professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I've been in Evanston for over 9 years. And I'm president of the Condo Association, member of the Council of Condo Presidents, and also a founding director of the Downtown Evanston Residents Association. I'd like to sort of address 2 issues, one of which a couple of you have heard before. One is about the energy profile and greenhouse gas emissions from a tall building, which I learned the hard way. I should first point out that the building is not, the current proposed building is not optimized for energy performance. It gets a score of 2 out of 9 points. A tall building has 2.5 times the embedded carbon, that's the carbon needed to sort of create the building, the construction and materials, of that of a similar square footage, say a 5-story building or under. That represents about 48% of the carbon footprint of the greenhouse gases that the building will produce over its lifetime. If you consider just one condo, say 1,500 square foot, the equivalent increase by having a tall building, which 31 stories, the load is 31 plus 30 plus 29, 610 versus say a 5-story building, which is 6 times 5 divided by 2, which is about 15. So you're going up as a square of the height of the building in terms of the requirement of the load. The equivalent to a 1,500 square foot building is 46,000 miles driven a year for the life of the building. So that's one thing, and I'll provide you some details on that. Secondly, I want to address the wind study. And in the wind study that has been presented by the developer, they look at 80% of the time what happens. The standard should be 95 or 97.5%. The loss and comfort numbers, the criteria that they're using that are standard, are much lower in terms of the desirable wind study for frail people, for children, and those are numbers that should be considered at the 95% level. It does not consider those numbers, but even in their wind study, given these caveats, and we know that the wind is higher closer to the coast than at O'Hare, and it's going up with climate change. Even with these criteria, the 80% level, much of Lambton Square you would not be able to walk in, even 80% of the time. Far less sit comfortably during the summer months. So you can say goodbye to Fountain Square, which is where we want people to be, because the wind, even 80% of the time, you can't guarantee even 4 out of 5 days people can sit. They have a hard time walking. If you look at the map, the blue area increases, they have a hard time walking, and that's for the able-bodied person. So I'll put those two, and I'm going to share a write-up on the environmental impact of high-rises on in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you very much.
Next on my list is Aaron Rosen, followed by Jennifer Grandy and Jenny Washburn. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll wait for him to be done.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Aaron Rosen. I live down the street at 1507 Maple, and I've been feeling deflated lately. It's going around, I know. They say you should focus on the things that you can control, and I certainly can't control how the Land Use Commission and the City Council vote on this plan development, but I can control what message I deliver to you, and perhaps more importantly, to my fellow Evanstonians who are working to influence its outcome. So to them and to you, I say the following. Enough with the dog whistle euphemisms denigrating Northwestern students, single people, and Rogers Park when you speak out against necessary additional housing in a place with convenient walkable services and transit. Enough about wind tunnels and additional traffic caused by buildings in an urban core where there is already density and local residents that don't drive that much. And enough with the claims that you really do care about affordable housing, despite your opposition to developments like this, because the increase in market units and affordable set-asides both make a real difference in that fight. When you oppose buildings like this, you oppose affordable housing. And I'm tired of all the specious reasoning claiming otherwise. I'll give the NIMBYs in Old Town credit for being honest about not wanting their views blocked and their pool occasionally shaded. In Evanston, we wrap our arguments in sanctimony and paternalism, and apparently package delivery. And it's utterly transparent and a farce. Stop protecting a derelict drive-through and an overgrown empty lot because you fear change. Stop pretending that you can will some kind of idealized form of a building into being on the site that has no relation to market demand or economic reality. You're just ensuring that nothing will happen on the site, which is what you all really want. It seems we have grown unambitious and fearful, revenants pining for an idyllic past that never really existed, and we sacrifice our future on the altar of that vision. I beg you to do better for all our sakes.
Okay, next up is Jennifer Grandy, followed by Jenny Washburn, and then Corey King.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Grandy, and I live at 1507 Maple, and I'm a decade-long downtown resident of the city of Evanston. I'm also the condo board president for the Lafayette condo building, but I'm not here today in that capacity. There seem to be a few condo board presidents. Also, I walked here. I promise that will be relevant later on. I can speak in favor of this building for many reasons, one being that it's offering the opportunity for a lot of residents to live in the middle of downtown and help its revitalization. Another is that we are in the midst of a housing crisis. The Chicago area has some of the fastest growing rents in the country. With that in mind, this is probably one of the best uses for a vacant bank drive-through. But I'd like to specifically address an argument that's come up in most downtown proposals. I've been to a lot of these. That once finished, this building will increase density, add traffic congestion, and make parking difficult. Regarding density, it's downtown. Density is kind of the point. Regarding traffic and parking, I live right by the Scholar and the Albion, and there were many of the same concerns when those buildings were proposed. If there's one thing that's evident living by those residential towers over the past 5 years of their dual existence, it's this. The Albion and Scholar residents aren't the ones that add to traffic, unless you count people walking their dogs as traffic. The car traffic mostly comes from people who live elsewhere, and speaking personally, I am that downtown resident referenced by the developer who drives maybe once a week. The proposed building doesn't do anything new with parking that the city hasn't approved before in this same area. Much like the Scholar, it seeks to meet arbitrary parking mandates in this dense, transit-rich area by renting parking spaces in our chronically underused downtown parking garages. It effectively decouples the cost of car storage from renting a unit in the building, and like the Scholar, if history is any guide, it will probably release many of those spaces back to the garages because there won't be much of a demand. A lot of the people who seek to live downtown do it for proximity to transit and amenities. Many ditch their car and its related expenses. The feature of the area is that you don't have to drive. It's why I moved here and why many people moved here. To lay it out plainly, this building will be by two different trains, at least 6 different bus lines, grocery stores, and other amenities. And yes, the university. To those who cite congestion and parking as issues when they come downtown, as a downtown resident, I invite you to look in the mirror. You aren't stuck in traffic, you are traffic, particularly when you're crawling around for parking instead of using one of the underutilized garages near the center of town. Which goes back to me walking here. This may seem straightforward, but it's not everyone's lived experience. When you live downtown, driving is often impractical and inefficient, plus expensive. In closing, more people living downtown is part of the investment in the long-term viability. The building appears to be a needed part of that investment, and perhaps those future residents will also walk to the city council meetings. Thank you.
Next up, Jenny Washburn, followed by Corey King, and then Paul Breslin.
May I approach? I have.
Certainly.
Thank you. I have 8 written requests for continuance.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, we'll add this to the, you can see it, and actually, do you need to see these two at this point, or later?
My question about all the written requests for a continuance is that none of them include the property address, and I don't know if that matters. The first one we received, where there would be an address, says in parentheticals, insert address or project name, and then these written ones also don't specify an address.
Would you like us to just write it in?
I'm just wondering.
We can do that.
If
I think that
The intent of a continuance and who can request one is based on the mailing radius. So as long as they live within the 1,000-foot radius, which the first request did, if I can
there's no like format that's required.
No, it just
Okay.
needs to be in writing and provide a reason why the continuance is requested.
Okay.
why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, here, I can bring.
All right. Why don't you go ahead, Jenny?
Thank you. All right, so I don't even know where to start. That was weird. The developer is taking full advantage of House Bill 2621 at the direct expense of Evanston taxpayers. This bill grants the developer a massive $40 million tax break over 30 years funded by our city and schools. This is not free money. It means less funding for our classrooms, public safety, and infrastructure, forcing Evanston residents to cover the shortfall through higher taxes or reduced services. In return for this enormous subsidy, the developer promises 20% of the units as affordable at 60% AMI, while collecting full market rents on the remaining 80%. They gain a valuable asset they can sell or refinance later, and the city permanently loses critical tax revenue with very little community benefit. The council member in the first ward requested consideration of 10% inclusionary housing instead of 20%, so Evanstonians could reap the full property tax benefits. The developer said that they are not interested, and they are only interested in the 20% due to the tax break Vermillion will get. It is clear they are only interested in the enormous tax break rather than providing the community the benefit of 10% affordable housing in perpetuity on site. Additionally, this huge tax break, which is in essence an unfunded mandate, is front-loaded. This means we are going to see very little in tax dollars in the first 3 to 5 years, the Trump years when we are losing grant funding. We don't see any significant taxes from this property until year 12. We won't see any full tax benefit until year 30. It's also important to remember these affordable units will expire after 30 years and can convert to market rate. Since the developer is asking us to pay for this, will the developer commit to keeping these units affordable in perpetuity? We deserve a clear answer. I'm actually asking. I live in 1,000 feet.
What? You're living. I'll keep a running list of the questions, and let's get through
All
the
right,
testimony.
can I reclaim my time? Thank you. Additionally, this proposal doesn't just stretch the rules, it shreds them. The developer is asking for 6 major zoning allowances for 145 units, where only 92 are allowed, a building nearly 4 times taller than the legal limit, and a floor area ratio almost double what's permitted. These aren't minor adjustments, they're wholesale exceptions and would gut the intent of the D3 downtown core development district and set a dangerous precedent. If this is approved, what's to stop every developer from treating our zoning code as optional? This isn't a solution to our city's housing crisis. I agree we have a housing crisis, but that doesn't mean that we need these huge developments. There are no long-term affordability commitments with this development, no family-size units, and 50 fewer parking spots than required. Meanwhile, Evanston residents are left to absorb the impacts: higher taxes, more traffic, more congestion, more strain on our infrastructure with no long-term benefit to the broader community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up is Corey King, followed by Paul Breslin, and then Julia Forgash. Corey King? No, okay. How about Paul Breslin?
Paul Breslin, 1635 Hinman. I will begin with a backhand compliment to the developer. This is the most thoughtful, attractive building that I never want to see built that I have ever encountered. So thank you. I'm going to skip some of the points that others have already made and go straight to what I think is the core of the issue. We've been accused of being sanctimonious if we oppose these projects. There is a syllogism that has formed, whether consciously or not, which runs something like this. Upzoning and building a lot of stuff is going to produce affordable housing. Second premise, all decent people support affordable housing. Conclusion, if you don't like big buildings, you must hate affordable housing and you're a selfish NIMBY. We heard a big dose of that a few minutes ago. You want to know who's sanctimonious? Look there. I'm interested in solving problems. And it seems to me that the practice of offering huge tax breaks to developers to make great big buildings and then stick little IHO units in them, most of which are 1-bedroom or studios, roughly 75% by the most recent description of this project that I've seen, is a very strange way to provide affordable housing. So I'll say very briefly how I would like to see the city provide affordable housing. First of all, find out how much money you've got. Do a forensic audit. Stop buying things on impulse like buying little beans. Figure out what uncommitted money you have. Then do a decision tree. What things are unpostponable and must be done now? What things can be done later? In what order? Then when you know how much money you've got, sequester as much of it as you can for affordable housing and attack the problem directly instead of going around Robin Hood's 31-story barn to solve it. So you could do a lot of things with that money. You could start a land trust. You could start a fiduciary trust to which people could apply for relief when they were cost burdened. And it would need a small bureaucracy to process the claims, but it would be a lot more affordable to the city and to us taxpayers than giving a $40 to $50 million break over the life of these IHO units. That's how I would like to see affordable housing. And I very much care about affordable housing. And I very much resent the notion that if I disagree with the program, I must be some kind of hideous old gargoyle who hates affordable housing. Let us hear a stop to that.
Next up is Julia Forgash, followed by Dr. Altman, and then Michelle Kleibeck.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My name is Julia Forgash. I live at 1580 Sherman Avenue. I am the president of the Optima Towers Condo Association, and I am a member of the Downtown Evanston Condo Association President's Council. And my comments tonight reflect the opinions of the members of that group. I was actually shocked that city staff even introduced this proposal to the public and to the council members. This proposal exponentially violates every restriction in the current zoning laws for this location. It's really frustrating that city staff will encourage developers with such unsuitable proposals, thus forcing us to defend our neighborhood. What is the point of having zoning laws if the people running our city don't follow them? Evanston has goals and real problems to solve when it comes to housing. I would ask, what problem does hundreds of high-rent studios and one-bedroom apartments solve for our city? I know there are many people who are excited about the 20% affordable housing units that come with this project. But I also know that this commission knows that the intersection of Illinois House Bill 2621 and Evanston's own exclusionary housing ordinance will give this developer millions of dollars in tax breaks for temporarily providing affordable housing units. And as a speaker before me said, the developer will be allowed to pay taxes only based on the land value for the first several years and will not pay taxes on the full value of the completed building for 30 years. By that time, those affordable units will have expired, so we may as well buy them ourselves. I also want to call attention to the fact that downtown is a neighborhood. Just because you call us downtown, I don't mean you, I mean the city. Just because the city calls us downtown does not mean that we are any different from any other neighborhoods. Central Street, Main Street, Dempster Street, and other parts of Evanston all have residents living side by side with businesses, train stops, and bus stops, just like us. Yet downtown is the only neighborhood where the city wants to impose buildings of this size. Projects a fraction of this size have been rejected in those other neighborhoods because of public objection. Other neighborhoods complain about traffic congestion and lack of light. Residents of downtown also have a right to sunlight and efficient traffic flow. Between this project and the legacy which has already been approved, there will be over 600 new residents moving to the same intersection of Chicago and Davis. This particular intersection is already teeming with traffic, and not because of car ownership. These streets are now cluttered with illegally parked package delivery vehicles, food delivery vehicles, service vehicles, and rideshare vehicles. Between this proposal and the legacy building, which has already been approved, you will be adding over 600 residents to a single intersection, summoning UPS, Amazon, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber, and various service and repair vehicles to their door. Where are these vehicles going to go? They will continue to park illegally or just leave their vehicles in the street blocking traffic.
Wrap up.
Well, the last thing that I would say is that my proposal for you is to reuse some of the empty commercial space for residential use, which would create naturally occurring affordable housing. It would also reduce the amount of empty commercial space, which will reduce competition for commercial space and help those businesses thrive. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. What? Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. And then I have Dr. Altman is next, and then Michelle Kleibeck. Dr. Altman? Okay. Thank you. Michelle Kleibeck. Just, would you? Okay, I think we're ready for you now.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michelle Klebeck. I live in the First Ward. I'm genuinely excited to see the parcel at 605 Davis finally being considered for development. As it stands today, this underutilized lot contributes little to the vibrancy or cohesion of downtown Evanston. A thoughtful, transit-oriented development here could help energize the block, fill in the gap of the urban fabric, and bring more foot traffic to local businesses. But that promise only matters if the design responds to the context it's entering. First, the retail component is deeply underwhelming. This project makes only a token gesture towards street level vibrancy. Just 15% of the ground floor area is dedicated to retail. A 3,000 square foot, 35-foot deep space is barely enough for a small coffee shop. In a downtown that's already struggling with empty storefronts and declining retail activity, why would be approving developments that treat retail space as an afterthought? If we're serious about revitalizing downtown Evanston, we can't afford to keep squandering key parcels with minimal non-strategic retail. Second, this design feels a bit like a generic copy-paste design from the SCB catalog. From the ornate facades of the university building to the richly textured masonry of early 20th century apartment buildings, downtown Evanston is defined by human scale, charm, and materials that reflect a sense of place. The city's architecture tells a story of thoughtful civic design. This latest proposal risks becoming a part of a chapter that doesn't quite belong. Last, this developer is set to receive a substantial tax exemption, which will cause us to lose out on tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue. And while I'm glad to see affordable units are included in this proposal, note that the rest of the units forecasted are set to be priced at $2,900 to $6,200 per month, according to the JLL report. It's hard to see how any of this is good for Evanston. I'm concerned that approving this project as is sets a troubling precedent that zoning is flexible to the point of irrelevance and that projects don't need to meaningfully deliver on community priorities. I look forward to a new proposal with a reduced scale and a more thoughtful approach to addressing the retail components and street level experience.
Okay, next on my list, I have Mike Johnson, followed by Dave Galloway, and then Dan Lev. Oh.
I think Mike just left. Mike Johnson.
Okay.
I don't know if he's coming back.
Well, in that case, let's move on to Dave Galloway.
Good evening. My name is David Galloway. I reside in the First Ward at 728 Noyes. I am here speaking on behalf of Design Evanston. This project came before Design Evanston for review quite a number of months ago. For the past 5 to 10 years, Design Evanston has frequently reviewed many projects that have come before the city, and we found this one to be most appropriate given its complexity. And we wrote, there's been a published review of this project in both the Roundtable and in Evanston Now, if you want to hear a more detailed explanation of our approval. Since the time of our first review, a number of our members have spent a good deal of time reviewing the 630 pages of supporting documents that the developer and his team have prepared. And based upon our review of those documents, we are further impressed with this team's thoroughness, thoughtfulness, and their design talent. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Next up is Dan Love, followed by Carol Goldblum, and then Jonathan Selbin.
Good evening. My name is Dan Lev. I am currently a resident of Irving Park in Chicago, born and raised here, work here, and aspiring to move back here. I want to voice my support for this project. I think that it's good. It is currently a hole in the ground, and they are recommending, the developer is recommending building about 400 plus units. I think that's positive. If we want retail to be thriving in downtown Evanston, we need to either A, bring more people from outside of Evanston in, or put more people in Evanston. This is an option to do the latter, so I think that's positive. I want to thank everybody who came tonight with their prepared remarks. Unlike me, that does not have anything written. I think it's clear that Evanston cares passionately about downtown development, about residential and retail uses, and about the future of our city, a city that I was part of, am still part of as a professional, and want to continue to be a part of. This project does not rip apart the zoning code. The developer is recommending a special use and a planned use development, so this is thoroughly contemplated by the development. I don't think it sets any kind of legal precedent. The whole point is that the Land Use Commission, the City Council, analyze projects on a case-by-case basis. That's what we're doing. I think in this context, what is happening is that a literal empty grass patch and vacant ATM lot is being proposed to be a really high use. The city right now is getting, less than $50,000 a year in taxes. So even if the large tax break is used by the developer, and over the course of 30 years, 80% of the total assessed value is being regained after the slow phase out of the tax credit, the state tax credit that's been mentioned several times, that's still magnitudes larger than the current use of the property. So on scale, I think that's a huge net positive for the city. And after 30 years, if the affordable units revert to market rate, the city will still gain massively through taxes. So it's a trade-off of a temporary affordable unit for a decreased tax revenue. Is that the best way to fund affordable housing? Probably not. Just as a society, it probably isn't. But in the context of this one parcel, I think the developer is making very good lemonade out of lemons. So on the whole, this is a great net positive, and I hope the Land Use Commission and the City Council approve it.
Okay. Thank you. Next up is Carol Goldbaum, followed by Jonathan Selbin, and then Cecile McHugh.
Gotta get it down to where. Can you hear me?
Yes, we.
Okay. I'm Carol Goldbaum. I live at the Marion. I came here to just learn some things. I've read some articles about this, but I have some concerns, particularly about the use of garages. When we were built, there was nothing built there, so we are using the lot, the Church Street lot, and I hope that you don't have reserved places, because during the day it's very, very full with people who work here, and at night is when there's extra space. But those of us who are somewhat handicapped, there are not enough handicap spots anyway. The other thing is the wind tunnel. I have a dog. I have been blown almost off my feet because of the wind, so I hope you will pay very close attention to that. We have frail people who need to go up to the grocery store, so I think that these are important issues for people who already see this as their lifetime home. And I guess most of the buildings around there seem to have college students. What happened to the north side? I went to Northwestern. I lived in that north part of the area, and there's no place for students to live unless they join a fraternity. That's an aside. But basically, I really hope that you take into consideration those who live there and not block any more sunlight that's already blocked by having tall buildings. The taller buildings are on the other side of the city, a little further west, and but on our side, this building is just a few stories too high. Just general observation, listening to everybody's talk. Thank you, and I hope we get some good results.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jonathan Selbin, followed by Cecile McHugh, and then I can't read, I don't know, Frida Walter, maybe?
Hello, Land Use Commission. I echo the sentiments of the first speaker and Mr. Rosen. I am in favor of this development. I think it will bring a positive change. It will bring foot traffic. It will bring at least 80 units of affordable housing. Is that correct? 86 units of affordable housing, more than any other private development, and it takes 0 city tax credit subsidies. They're using a state law, so this isn't something that the city is giving them. This is something that the state of Illinois said, hey, we want more affordable housing, and they're taking advantage of what the state says. So it's nothing that the city of Evanston's doing, but if the community values affordable housing as much as they value their lawn signs, I say we should put this forward. Also, more market rate development in addition to inclusionary housing development will, in the long run, lower housing costs for everybody. So, is this a big project? Yes, sure, it's a big project. But, this could have been an office building where people weren't going to live, or this could stay a vacant ATM machine in a vacant lot that doesn't really do anything for the community, especially, no one's using it. And I believe that this development will actually do well with the skyline. I mean, right now we have the Sherman Plaza, we have Orrington Plaza, and they fit, in this new building will fit right into this. People complain, what about the zoning code? Like, what is the zoning code protecting? The zoning code is, the downtown had these other developments built of very large heights. The precedent has been set. This building will fit right into this precedent. This is a planned use development, and this will have a positive effect on the community. More foot traffic for retail, more new neighbors which we should welcome to add to this vibrant community and indulge in Evanston's amenities. This isn't a debate about scarcity. It's a debate about creating more abundance for this community and our city and making a dent in this housing crisis. I yield my time. Thank you.
The next speaker is Cecile McHugh, followed by, I'm trying to read this name, it looks like Frida Walter, and then Eddie Deckel.
Hello, good evening. I'm Cecile McHugh, and I live at 1926 Orrington Avenue in Evanston. In 2017, this developer proposed a 33-story development for this location, which was rejected because it was considered to be too tall. In 2020, this developer proposed a 19-story, 232 feet, development for this location, which was approved. I'm not sure why we're here tonight again with a proposal for a development of approximately the same height that was rejected in the past for being too tall. What happened to the 2020 plan, the plan for a 19-story building that was approved? There is something new this time, though. The development is now being presented as a joint venture between the developer and the owners of the lot next door, the University Building lot. The University Building lot is said to be included in the area to become a new planned development. Yet, the University Building lot is already developed and will remain unchanged. Is this really a single plan development or a ploy? I don't believe ever before tried in Evanston and precedent setting a ploy to artificially deflate the FAR and inflate the number of allowable units for the lot, making these metrics calculated for the lot size more acceptable by introducing an already developed adjacent lot in the proposal. It's an especially bad time to propose a building that would be Evanston's tallest building when the city's new comprehensive plan and zoning code are under revision. Lastly, well, it's not quite lastly, this proposed planned development, like all the other high-rises downtown, will be home to mainly NU students without the required discussion of the factors specific to this population, including how we'll move in and move out, a huge number of deliveries and passengers being picked up and dropped off be managed. What other considerations for a student population are there? Perhaps more trash, or at least at move-in and move-out time? It's time Evanston finally stops pretending that residents in rental apartments downtown won't be mainly students and adequately prepares for that reality. This would be the largest student dorm we have, and it would be in the very center of our city. We don't want it to, for example, block traffic to this meeting tonight. Finally, I think it's simply a shame to put a high-rise on one of our last remaining walkable historic blocks, a block that is right in our city center, is our city center. I want to add on a few points, sort of bullet list items. Seems obvious to me that the way to get more units with multiple bedrooms, which families need, including affordable units, is to not allow the developer to exceed the maximum number of units. Thank you.
Next up is, I think, Frida Walter. Apologize if I get the name wrong. Okay, how about Eddie Deckel? Okay, Kritzman. And then
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Kritzman. I'm resident of 713 Oakton Street in South Evanston. I'm just here to speak in support of the project. I've heard a lot of arguments for and against, and I've heard a lot of the same things at hearings like this, here in Evanston, in Chicago, across the country. And they always seem to have some little detail. Well, we like development. We think this block should develop, this youth lot should develop, but this isn't the right one. We support new housing, but it's too dense, or it's just not the right kind. Or the developer's going to make money, and that's a problem. That's why we have a housing problem, a nationwide housing problem. It's why I learned something tonight, that this would, if I heard that right, double the amount of affordable housing built under the downtown housing ordinance in the last decade. I mean, frankly, that's shameful. We should be ashamed that we've been that unsuccessful in delivering affordable housing. So, let's look at the context. And I think that's ultimately what I'd ask is that we are talking about a block in the center of downtown, the center of the downtown district. We should be thinking it is well connected to transit, highly walkable. We should be looking at that anything that does not max out and then some, the available development potential of the site, that doesn't supply as much affordable housing as possible and as much housing as possible and providing as much economic benefit as possible is a failure. I would argue that context is not what we should be arguing about, and that I have heard lots of thoughts about and points about wind, traffic, things like that. I think they're valid points. I would love for the effort to make the development better, the plan better, not by stymieing it, not by getting the path of progress, but by thinking about things. Okay, it's 2 spaces for loading enough in front. Should it be 6? I agree that Davis backs up, and it's because of double parking. One point about the parking is any dollar spent on parking on this lot or in downtown is a dollar not spent on walkability, not spent on vibrancy of the pedestrian environment. I think it's converse here that adding any more parking to this building would actually make traffic worse on that block. I think it's very thoughtful to spread the pain and spread the peanut butter a little bit of the need. So last thing I'll just say is we're in the middle of a process here in Evanston of our comprehensive plan, a forward-looking process. There used to be a time when new development in our downtowns, new buildings going up, new height, was something that we thought was, took pride in. And I'd argue that we should be thinking forward, thinking about the future of the community and the future of Evanston, and how do we embrace those ideals and really tackle the biggest challenge, which are housing. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. And my last 2 speakers, and I'm afraid I'm going to butcher this name, it's Dirt and Steve Miller. So if, are either of those people? Oh, okay. And I apologize for whoever whichever name I've messed up.
Hi, thank you. Steve Miller, 924 Sherman Avenue. And this will be redundant. I'll try to keep it brief. But things have changed in the last 5 or so years, so building that high on Davis 5 years ago wouldn't be nearly the problem it is now. This has been mentioned by other people, but it bears repeating. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, UPS, FedEx, and repair people, and there's 1 vacant spot on Davis dedicated for all of that. I mean, I get an Amazon delivery every day. So, I mean, all I can say is Davis is already the worst congested double-parked street And that's without hundreds of units of people relying on DoorDash, et cetera, on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any idea what that is? Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak that I've missed? Okay. And you're signed up on the sign-up sheet?
I did not sign up.
Would you please?
Why, yes. Oh, they left a pen right here.
Well, how convenient.
Okay, read the fine print, though, Jeff. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now then, thank you, Jeff Barini, 1800 Ridge. Just listening to the discussion tonight, and Commissioner Lindwall, at one point you asked about the market study. First of all, thank you for your time tonight and the service that you give in this effort. Really appreciate it as a resident. You asked about the market study that led to the composition of this building. And Carrie, you talked about that these kinds of buildings typically have smaller units in them. And you said that buildings in Madison and Lakeview have a similar makeup. And then you said that young professionals don't live in these units. They like amenity-rich buildings with social spaces. You know, but you said nothing about the density, and it just seems like the argument was that these buildings just sort of appear because that's the way the world order is, and that's how things are. Well, that's how these things are when you're aiming at a transient population like grad students and young urban professionals and things. And that's fine. They're entitled to do that as a development. I just would appreciate more transparency in that. And, you know, a lot of the comments tonight and criticisms involve the negative tax impact of this project and the wind tunnels and the height of the building and traffic and congestion and parking, et cetera. And I think it would just be great. The developers, you've done a really creative job on a number of pieces regarding this. It would be great to have you come back and try to address how you might mitigate some of the criticisms that have come to this project or not, and see how to make this better and see if there's a way to merge it, kind of teeing off from the last speaker who was here too. So it'd be great to see what else can be done to kind of address some of these issues. And certainly just to let the community know that you're listening, you're trying to work on these things as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That concludes my my speaker list. I presume I haven't missed anybody at this point. There was one question that came up from the public that I'd like the developer to address, and that had to do with whether or not the developer could or would consider committing to permanent affordable units. So if you could respond to that question from the public, and then we can move on to the issue of the continuance.
So Kerry Dixon from Vermillion Development again. We have heard that request being made. The proposal that's before you now is to comply with Evanston's inclusionary housing ordinance, which is a 30-year commitment for the affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. That, we have a request for a continuance, and I've given, do we have?
I mean, do the commissioners, I understand we're not voting this evening because of the request, but do we want to talk about it?
We can't talk about it. We have to wait until the public testimony has been closed, so no.
Okay, so I'm just flagging my ignorance. Can you explain how this process changes in light of the request for a continuance? Because I'm unclear on next steps now.
Chair, would you like
Please.
staff to take that question, or would you like to?
Yes, since you have I don't have the pieces of paper with the specific items that are requested to be addressed, so that would be helpful.
My understanding of the procedures is that at the next hearing, we would not open it up for anyone to provide public testimony further beyond the folks that have specifically requested a continuance. They have the opportunity to present evidence at that continuance hearing to be able to basically refute anything that was presented by the applicant or anything specific to their continuance requests. So the continuance requests this evening relate to the ownership of the lot. And the other reason is to prepare a response to the information presented. So those are the two reasons why continuances were requested, and they would be limited to those that have requested the continuance in terms of further public testimony.
So is it correct?
Yeah, I put a continuance request at the bottom of my comments.
So did I.
Yeah, I did not receive those, so if there's other
don't
written
know that I-
reasons, I would need the chair to speak to those.
So does this mean, in terms of process, that we're now pausing we will reconvene in 30 days at a
No,
meeting?
the commission has the discretion to set the date for the continuance hearing. Typically, it is related to the types of requests that have been in writing to you and what you think a reasonable timeframe is. That could be the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is, I believe it's August 13th.
And so, as a hypothetical, I just want to understand what's going on. At the next regularly scheduled meeting, let's say that's when this happens, the people who submitted continuances before we closed public comment would have the opportunity, the developer would have the opportunity to address those requests for information, and the public would have a chance to respond? Is that how this would work?
The individuals that have requested a continuance will have an opportunity to present their testimony and evidence per their specific continuance request. Then the applicant they also have the opportunity to cross-examine any of the experts that the applicant team has, spoken during this public hearing process. So they can ask them questions and the applicant team can respond to those questions, essentially. But that is the extent of further public testimony. It would be limited to those that have, in writing, submitted continuance requests.
Okay, so then the goal would be at this meeting that we work through the continuance requests, and then public testimony at future meetings about this development is not reopened because we had it tonight.
Correct. Tonight was, you heard all those that signed up, and anyone who has written a continuance request and provided it to you in writing this evening would have that opportunity to speak. The chair wouldn't have further public testimony beyond that.
Okay.
At that point,
Then
you
would
start
close.
your deliberations, essentially.
Either the evening of that same meeting, or?
Typically, it's that same evening, yes.
Okay, thank you for humoring me and walking me through that.
And I think that I want to make sure we have, I don't know that I have all of the written requests for continuance. And one of the, so if I recall correctly, they're really limited to the market study and the wind analysis. And then also the question about the transfer of development rights and the calculation. And that's something that I think we'll need to have input from our legal staff. And I don't know if she can provide that now, or or we can continue just that, or if it's more appropriate to continue at the next meeting.
I think it'd be more appropriate at the next meeting.
At the bottom of my remarks, first of all,
Okay.
request
Okay.
for continuance related to the alley.
And so did I. Valley left.
Oh.
At the bottom, I requested a continuance.
Okay, so got that one.
Yes.
Val, okay. don't know that I have a written, I think we have your statement. But I don't know that I have a written request for what issue. Is this?
On mine, the issue was traffic and parking. The numbers given do not fit.
Okay, but we need a written. No, I think this is his statement. Oh, I see. There's a request for continuance. There is. Okay, we do have it. So that has to do with resident parking and I guess what, package deliveries. Okay, yes, you may have.
Did you see mine?
Bruce, yes, yes. So, and you've got, so staff now has all of the specific requests.
Yeah. Would you like us to read into the record who is on file for
Request
providing?
I think that would be very useful, and then
gonna
we
give
can
them to her.
discuss when. Oh, I am not. Okay. All right. But I don't have, I have the, all right, so.
And
Yeah,
Chair,
right
just to clarify, we did receive 8 written requests from Jenny Washburn, one of which was not within the noticing radius, so would not be a valid continuance request.
Right. I agree with that. And again, all of these people live within the boundaries. So we have requests for continuance from Steve Miskowitz concerning the legal framework for determining that the university building is part of the development site, and that's how the FAR would be calculated. And then in addition, the one from, we have one from Jenny Washburn, which involves continuance related to the wind study, the FAR, the legal basis for calculating the FAR. Let's see. And I don't know, I don't have a specific reason from Julia Forkash or Betty Levenfield or Gal Aga or Marita McLaughlin or Paul Breslin. But they've all requested continuances. So presumably, they would speak to one of the,
Jane,
yes,
Baumberger, the alley, from the bottom of my comments.
yes, we have it. I'm looking at, there are a number of people who requested a continuance but did not state a reason.
So how are we going to move forward with that?
Well,
If they didn't state a reason?
there is going to be a continuance.
Right,
But the
then-
only items that so far that are subject to discussion are the legal framework for the plan development lot determination, the wind study, and then we have, again, the enabling ordinance, and then we have several that relate to the market study, continuance to further analyze parking availability, a continuance for a more accurate wind shear analysis, and let's see, and then we have from Bruce Bomberg. Also, lack of analysis of alley traffic. And
The relationship with alley property owners and traffic.
right. And then finally, Valley Love regarding resident parking and the drop-off and then move in, move out, and garbage.
But if they did not state a reason, will they be speaking next time, or you need to state an explicit reason to speak to the continuance?
What? I think that, it's got to be related to these topics. I think that the people who requested the continuance would be, I think that it can't be a new issue. I don't know that we can't limit testimony related to these topics. I don't believe, can we? What?
Sorry.
I mean,
Thank you, Cynthia Granfield. Good evening. I believe that only those topics that have been specifically requested.
Yeah, it's basically evidence to rebut testimony given by the applicant.
Yeah, only those continuances that have been specifically requested on a specific topic can be the ones that can be heard. I don't know that the individuals that just requested a continuance can be heard because they won't have any evidence to rebut any testimony because they haven't identified testimony that they're rebutting. So I think at the next time it will be on those topics for those that have filed for a motion for continuance on the topic that have identified.
But they would be allowed to bring experts to address those topics. So it's possible that it's not going to be just limited to these specific speakers that requested the.
Right. But I mean, the speakers that didn't identify a topic couldn't come up to the podium and present a new topic and new experts. That's what I meant.
So the continuance is based on the topics where a specific topic has been identified. Mr.
What? Well,
No.
no, I'm sorry. I'm saying it really confusing, and I apologize. Again, it would be the individuals that requested a continuance would be entitled to present evidence if they have identified a topic. I don't believe that the individuals that just requested a continuance without identifying a topic would be able to present evidence because they haven't identified a topic that they're going to present evidence on. So when you guys all come back, you will hear the motions for continuance with that have a specific topic identified. If that hopefully makes sense. I'm sorry. It's
So basically, it had to be in writing, and it needed to identify a topic in order for that person to be eligible to come to the podium at the continuance hearing.
Right.
It's not enough that they submitted something in writing. It needed to have an issue attached to it. So if they simply submitted something but they didn't have an issue, they can't come up at the continuance, is what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
Unless,
Okay.
of course, they have specific evidence related to one of these topics. For example, if, no?
That's
No?
my question. So can anybody from the public talk about these topics that are being continued?
They're supposed to be presenting evidence. The purpose of the continuance is to present new evidence. So presumably, the people who've requested the continuance will have new evidence to present to us, and that the development team can respond to.
But of the 8, it sounds like you're saying of like let's say we got 10, including these 2 gentlemen, for example. We have 2 here. We have 8 from Ms. Washburn, I believe you said, and we have 1 from the developers. That puts us at 11. Some percentage of that 8 do not have a subject attached. They just say I'm requesting. So let's just say, to keep the math simple, 3 out of the 8 don't have a topic. It's just a blanket request for a continuance.
No.
What you are saying is out of the 11 requests, 8 are eligible because they were written and they identified the topic. And those are the people we will hear from, is those 8. Is that correct?
Right. Those are the individuals that can present evidence.
Okay, I think that I'd like to hear from Mr. Reefman and I think that, oh, we have actually a question and a comment from Commissioner Mangum first.
Hi. Which rule are we referring to when we're limiting the people who won't be able to speak next time?
So you are referring to your Land Use Commission rules and procedures, which specify that anyone can, within the noticing radius, and this is located on, one second, page 10 of 18 of your Land Use Commission rules. And then it also relates to zoning section 63611B, which states eligible property owners as set forth above may wish to object, who wish to object upon written request be granted 1 continuance for the purpose of presenting evidence to rebut testimony given by the applicant. The date of such continued hearing shall be at the discretion of the commission.
Thank you. I'll take a look. Thanks.
Thank you again. David Reefman on behalf of the applicant. I just want to, I think I appreciate the questions, Commissioner Berlin. I think they're getting to the point I want to be sure we're clear about. So again, as an additional example, and Bruce, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. I just know you as Bruce. Baumberger. So if Mr. Baumberger has raised an issue about the alley, Mr. Baumberger can come in and speak to the issue of the alley. No one can speak to other issues, and Mr. Baumberger can only speak to the issue of the alley and present evidence or questions or rebuttal related to that issue. And that's the extent. And each individual who has requested a continuance for a specific topic is limited in the same way, so that it doesn't become everybody gets to speak about the alley. Everybody gets to come back and repeat all the issues they raised tonight. It's limited to those very specific issues by the very specific person who asked for the continuance on that topic. Is that correct?
It generally is correct. However, I would again defer to Corporation Counsel to just ask if they bring a witness or if they have an expert witness, that person could relate it to that topic.
Absolutely, yes. So that's correct, and absolutely.
So it's limited to those
I understand
topics.
Mr. Baumberger is not an alley expert. He may want to present something about alleys. That I understand.
But he may want to bring an expert.
And as the petitioner was limited to a certain period of time, will the cross-examination or the rebuttal of each witness be limited to a certain period of time?
I would expect so, although, it's kind of hard to tell, but I think that generally the 3 minutes that, and if they've got if the people requesting a continuance have expert witnesses they wanted to bring, it would be limited to probably, a certain period of time. Generally, if we have groups of speakers presenting evidence, it's generally limited to 10 minutes has been kind of our practice.
Okay, that sounds fine. Thank you.
Can I ask one more process question? Can the city email the people like ASAP who met the requirements of living in 1,000 feet, writing it out, and including a subject, and once the date has been decided, and make sure they have as much notice as possible, because that way they have time to prepare, right? I think given how complicated it's been for us to figure out who's going to be talking at this next meeting, I think we should alert the people who have met the criteria so that they can prepare.
Unfortunately, I do not know if we have email contact information for all of the people who requested continuances. So it would be up to them to follow along on this process. Short of mailing them a letter that they have an eligible continuance request, I don't believe everyone who's requested a continuance is still here in the meeting this evening. But my expectation would be that they would listen and understand when their continuance, or if their continuance was granted. That's why I asked the chair to read into the record who specifically is eligible for providing that testimony. So if we could go through those names one more time with the clarification of Corporation Counsel, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, and then when you're putting together that list of specific items, obviously the development team needs that as well. And I think that would be probably helpful when you put together the list, to send that to the commission members. So
Yeah, and
we have
Megan,
it.
clarify if I'm incorrect. Do we have email addresses on the sign-up sheet, the online sign-up sheet for folks?
For those who registered online, I think.
For those who
Okay,
signed
so
up
if we
on-
have the contact information, I'm 100%, staff will absolutely reach out to those folks, but I just don't want to blanket say, yes, we will, if we don't have contact information for them.
Well, to the extent I can be helpful trying
Yeah,
to track
yeah.
down people or contact people, I'm happy to help.
Staff will take the lead on that. Yep.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
stay out of it.
Chairperson, you have my email and you have Bruce's on there already too.
Okay, so Steve Miskowitz is one. Jenny Washburn is number 2. Let's see, Steve, you were on 2 pieces of paper.
My email's on the staple one.
What?
We've received one more written request for a continuance. I have a request for a continuance related to housing density at 605 Davis from Sam Gedman, who lives at 807 Davis.
Okay.
So,
I need that. Thank you. All right. So we have Sam Geman, Steve Miskowitz, Jenny Washburn, Bruce Bomberger, Valley Lev, and I believe that is it.
Do you have to own the property?
What? You have, yes.
Staff verified that through the mailing list, which is sent to the taxpayers of record. So we verified the people with the addresses that were listed. This evening, correct. Correct, yes.
Gene, procedural question. Several commissioners are not present for the meeting this evening. Hopefully they'll be here at the next meeting. What's the procedure for them to participate in the discussion? Do they go back and look at the recording of this meeting, or?
Generally, that would be, they would review the public record, so yes, they would listen to the recording, they'd read the packet. That's the procedure that's handled, especially in cases where the commission is a final authority and there's, they may have missed meeting. They're requested to have reviewed the meeting. Okay, so we have the requests for the proposal. I guess the next thing is to decide on the date for the continuance. And typically, we would do this at the next meeting, which would be August 13th. What's our agenda look like for that meeting?
I believe we have 2 special use requests that are relatively straightforward, so I think we could accommodate this in that evening.
Okay, would that give the folks requesting the continuance adequate time? Okay. All right, then may I have a motion to continue this project to August?
I move.
Just one procedural question, Chair. We need to close public testimony to those that, beyond just the written continuance requests, so we're not accepting additional public comment at the next meeting. It's limited to those that have requested continuances. And then can you please read into the record who those people are?
Oh, okay. I thought I had just done that, but
With the topic or just who they are? Yeah, with the topic.
okay. All right. Then I guess, and kind of, is it appropriate for me to make a motion since I've got the names at this point?
If that would be helpful, if you could, please.
I think maybe that might be. All right. A continuance has been requested by the following individuals related to the following subjects, and the proposed, I would propose that this public hearing be continued to the August 13th, 2025 Land Use Commission meeting for the purpose of hearing additional testimony from the following individuals on the following topics. Sam Gaiman, 807 Davis, requesting a continuance related to housing density at 605 Davis. Steve Miskowitz at 807 Davis, requesting a continuance concerning the transfer of development rights and the legal framework for that, in particular, related to the calculation of the floor area ratio, and continuance related to the market study, and to further analyze parking availability, and continuance for a more accurate wind shear analysis. I believe that's all from him. From Jenny Washburn, also at 807 Davis, related to the wind study, the FAR and the legal basis for the calculation of the FAR to include the university building. And Bruce Bomberger at 807 Davis, related to the lack of analysis of alley traffic and the impact on adjacent property owners. And I think that's basically it. And Val Lev, 807 Davis, related to resident parking and the drop-off of food deliveries, people, and miscellaneous drop-offs, people and packages, and how the turnovers will be handled, and garbage pickup. And I believe that. So can I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, I guess we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Berlin?
Yeah, I mean, aye.
Commissioner Harris-Ferry?
Aye.
Commissioner Mangum?
Yes, but I would ask that the date be pushed to August 27th meeting, since at least one party asked for 30 days.
Sarah, I can. Well, it can be amended. I mean, or I can.
Is the policy that it can be up to 30 days and it's at the commission's what's the policy?
Setting of the continuance date is at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, I move to stick with the 13th, personally. I mean, I think we've had a lot of conversation. Let's just keep going. We've invested, everyone in this room has invested a lot of time and thought. Let's just keep going. That's my personal opinion.
I would ask for August 27th, because I will not be able to attend the 13th.
Once we're already voting, can it be amended?
No.
So we need to finish the vote.
All right.
All right, so Commissioner Mangum?
So, no.
And Commissioner Mudenchev?
Yes.
Chair Lindwall?
Yes. Okay, with that, this hearing is continued to August 13th and then at 7 p.m. All right, now is, we're not done with the agenda yet. Close. 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 we have open, the next item, but so the hearing is continued. Public comment is the next item. Does anyone wish to make a statement? Okay, hearing no one, then we can have a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.